Anger resolution, additional resources. This is a accompanying video to the nonviolent communication and anger resolution video that I have produced earlier. In this video, I'd like to add additional tools that you might use in your practice, particularly with anger management or anger resolution, and then forgiveness of self and others. Normally, when I've done this with clients, I've experimented, and I'll generally produce a 3-ring notebook with the forms in it for the client. So normally I'll do a cover of the 3-ring notebook. Here, John Smith, who was never my client, so this isn't a real client for me, I would put the name of the client and then something pithy about the client. In this case, thoughts, reflections, and witticisms seem to be something that fit with the client's initial interview discussion. And then I would put a picture. This particular client liked being in nature, so I selected something like that as the cover of the binder. And then within the binder, I would compile forms in the following order. First would be the somewhere along the road form, which might be used in the initial interview. It kind of looks at this particular period in the client's life and can be used with a number of issues in addition to anger in terms of client's presentation. It's a kind of snapshot of what's going on in the client's life at a particular time. Initial interviews are a good time to look at the client's responses to these metaphors. It provides a sense of where clients see self along his or her road of life. The SAR considers what the person believes to be blocking them, for instance, at this point in their life. So we'll see that the road has boulders that blocks the path. What they find refreshing, what are the things in life that are refreshing? What are the issues or questions that are unclear, symbolized by the dust storm? And then where clients derive or find their energy and direction. These can be people or other kinds of experiences. Some people like nature or being immersed in meditation. Then moving on, looking at what might be construed as meadow flowers. What are the positive things that the person is experiencing in their life at the current time? And companions. Companions involve not only friends and relatives and others perhaps, but also pets perhaps, and then certain conditions, happiness, anger, fear, health conditions might be unwanted companions that are along the way. But those may have a lot of impact in terms of the work one does with the client. And then, of course, looking ahead as to where things might be going for the client in the present period and into the near future. So that would be a form you might use, but you could use that with a number of clients, not just around issues of anger, although it's pertinent to that as well. And then I put in the form, the NVC form we looked at in the other video, where we consider observations, feelings, needs, and requests as we work through the issues around anger. In addition to this, I include the positive and negative feelings forms, although I'm not putting that in this particular slideshow. It would be forms that I would add as well, and those are also in the workbook that I've included on the website that we talked about. Next would be what we call stepping stones of anger. Now, stepping stones can be used for the person's life from the birth to the present, and if you were doing it more generically with a client dealing with other issues, they might think of the key events of their lives and just list them. This is sort of like a log section where you just list the event rather than working more on dialoguing with people or things to do with the event or other kind of journal techniques. But basically, though, in this case we're looking at stepping stones of anger for the clients that you might be working with anger resolution. And the events here aren't so much associated with a person's birth, but the birth of the relationship or the friendship with a person who's the focus that the person is working with. So from the beginning of the relationship to the present, list all the key events during the time the person has known the other party. And this means that the person will be listing both positive, neutral, and negative events, because most friendships or relationships lead over a course of time with a mix of things, having very positive memories and then along with those accompanying negative ones as well at times. So the additional questions below the listing can be helpful too. I have some additional reflection questions here that people might consider journaling about if you so desire, or find any of those to be of benefit. The next tool or form that I would offer here is one looking at intersections in terms of the relationship, roads taken and not taken, for instance. And again, this intersections worksheet can be used with both other clients and particularly with people who are working through anger. In this case, the intersections worksheet will focus on the person that is being the target of processing the anger here. And so again, what have the change points been during the time the person has known the party that they are working with? Therefore, for instance, I was born means the friendship was born, and then, for instance, they had dinner in June of 1977. That would be the birth of the friendship. And then list changes that occurred over time, such as one of them moving perhaps to another area and not seeing the other for a long time, or growth in the relationship where maybe there have been other rough patches that people have experienced and have worked through. Because we want to have a kind of bigger picture of what things have been like over time, not just this one crisis event that has shifted the relationship into one that perhaps could end the friendship and communication. Again, I offer some additional questions or reflective ideas for looking at these change points, which could be important in terms of maybe having a great insight about something. Maybe there's been a lot of change points and there's always been resolution, and then again maybe there have been periods where people haven't talked for years and reconnected. And then of course the conversations with self. This is kind of in Ira Prokoff's journal system. He calls this dialogue with self, dialogue with others. One can dialogue with a number of things. So dialogue could be a part of a journal work that you do with clients based on what their needs are. In this case, one would begin to do the stepping stones with anger, which you had, that we just discussed, and then perhaps the intersections, which may have some impact on this. But basically the person would want to look first at the stepping stones, reflect on that, kind of relax and close their eyes, and begin to form a question that they would want to start the conversation with in terms of their anger. And so, asking oneself, this is kind of like a Gestalt exercise with an empty chair, although in this case the person quiets down and visualizes themselves, their angry self, and asking that question, and then interacting back and forth about perhaps what one might call a conversation in terms of what this is all about. And then the another form that I've found helpful with clients in the past, and again, it's called dialogue with wisdom figure or conversation with a wisdom figure. But again, one would do a stepping stones of all the key wisdom figures one has encountered in life. So I put that little area here. This is kind of like the stepping stone section, and the other one, I was born, and then, who were the key figures in terms of wisdom? Was it parents? Was it grandparents? Was it a teacher? Was it some sort of clergy person? Was it one's pets? For instance, one of my wisdom figures is my dog King. When I was in high school, we would sit on the porch in the evening watching falling stars and having philosophical discussions. So those discussions had some impact on something I had done in midlife, and the dialogue was very helpful with King. But basically, you would list the stepping stones and then figure who was the one that's standing out at this point in time, which of the figures. And so then, again, quieting down, beginning to ask a question, again, of the wisdom figure to start the conversation or dialogue. And so then you would write back and forth. You would ask the question and listen and wait for the wisdom figure to respond. Again, another conversation sort of framework that might draw insight for people who might find that sort of metaphor to be helpful. And then there are other kinds of journal techniques you might use, or forms. However, those are the initial ones I suggest that you might consider. Please feel free to contact me by email if I can be of further help in terms of your questions. I list here again Dr. Rosenberg's Nonviolent Communication textbook that may be of help to you, and then the website gdecentro.org has the workbook that has these forms in them that you can download and use. Thank you.